Coming home from a work trip a day early, I found my 5-year-old daughter sobbing in front of 2 police officers. She was terrified, believing the strange men were there to take her away. I didn't scream, I acted. A week later, they were the one screaming dot. It wasn't a mother's intuition that brought me home early, but a canceled client meeting in Austin. I decided to take the night train, planning to surprise Charlotte with donuts in the morning. My stomach was in knots, but that's become my default feeling whenever my mother is involved. The key turned in the lock more quietly than usual, as if I were bracing for impact. I just didn't expect what I found. 2 police officers were in the living room. One scribbled in a notepad, while the other, a young, kind-faced man, was crouched down talking to my daughter. My 5-year-old Charlotte was curled on the couch, arms pinned to her sides, staring at the floor like she was awaiting a sentence. My mother, Phyllis, stood nearby with her arms crossed, looking like a judge with a decided verdict. My sister, Kendra, was holding her daughter, Nora, who was sniffling and fake sobbing into her shoulder. For a moment, I thought they might be at the wrong house. Then one of the officers looked up and said, "Good morning. You must be Mrs. Cross Mallory, Charlotte's mother." I nodded. "Yes. What's going on?" He moved slightly, positioning himself between me and Charlotte, not aggressively, but protectively. His voice softened. "Everything's all right. We were just responding to a call. There was a report of a dispute between children." One pushed the other. "We were told you were out of town, so we've been speaking with your mother and sister." I looked directly at my mother. "Called the police on a 5-year-old. Kendra immediately interjected. "She hit Nora. She fell and was crying really hard." Right? Nora, who was currently eating a cracker and sneaking glances at Charlotte like she'd won. Charlotte still hadn't looked up. Her small body was shaking. I walked over, sat next to her, and hugged her. "She didn't hit," my mom corrected coldly. "She pushed." We tried talking to her, but she got mouthy. We thought a quick chat with the police would help her understand this behavior isn't okay. Other officer finally spoke up, raising an eyebrow. "For a 5-year-old, ma'am, we don't typically conduct behavioral chats with kids who aren't even in kindergarten yet. We came because we had to. But honestly, this isn't what emergency services are for." It was then that Charlotte finally looked at me and began to cry, a quiet, broken sob, as if something inside her had just given up. I hugged her tighter. She wrapped her arms around my neck and clung to me like I was the only solid thing left. I rubbed her back and looked at the officer. "There's nothing here that warrants further action," he said gently. "We've documented statements from everyone. No signs of harm. The child is shaken but calm now. We'd recommend handling situations like this privately in the future. Especially," he turned to my mother, "without calling in law enforcement unnecessarily." "You're not opening a case?" Kendra asked defensively. "No, ma'am," he said firmly. "And let me be clear, if this kind of report happens again, it could be considered misuse of emergency services. We have real emergencies. Don't waste our time." He then gave Charlotte a small, surprising smile. "You're okay, Charlotte. No one's taking you anywhere. You can go back to playing now, all right? Just remember, sometimes other kids want to play with the same toy, and that's okay. Pushing isn't how we solve it. Doesn't make you bad. You don't have to give up your toy if you don't want to. You just talk about it. Okay?" She nodded into my shoulder. He smiled at me, then walked out with his partner. The door clicked shut and silence fell over the room. Well, except for Nora, whining that she wanted to go to the park. Kendra whispered something to her and my mom looked at me, expecting an apology. "You've lost your damn minds," I said. "Calling the police on a 5-year-old over a toy." "Not over a toy," Phyllis snapped. "Over aggression. You spoil her. She thinks she can do anything she wants. Kids like that become problems in school. Then grandmothers like you become stories therapists here for years," I shot back. "What kind of adult terrifies a child with cops?" "I didn't terrify her," my mom replied, arms folding tighter. I just said if she didn't stop, there'd be consequences. That's not a threat. It's the truth. You told her the police were going to take her away. You know she's scared of strangers. Phyllis shrugged. Maybe now she'll think twice. I held Charlotte even closer. Yeah, well, now you can think twice. You're never being alone with her again. Not you, not Kendra. That's done. Mallory, come on. We were just trying to help. Don't even realize what you did? She wasn't fighting over a toy. I said she was protecting herself, her boundaries. And you showed her that standing up for herself gets her treated like a criminal. Phyllis opened her mouth, but I held up my hand. No, that's it. We're done here. The silent betrayal that night. At home, I was going through our usual routine, washing her hair, helping her with pajamas, reading her a book about dragons. I kept stumbling over the words because my mind wouldn't stop racing. I pointed to the page. You know who my favorite is? The princess. Not the dragon, not the knight, the princess. Because she doesn't sit around waiting to be rescued. Charlotte was quiet, then she said softly, Mom, Grandma said that if I told you, you'd get upset because you'd be ashamed of me. I let out a long exhale and closed the book. Okay, first of all, pushing someone isn't okay, even if they try to. Take your toy. Her eyes dropped. But that doesn't make you a bad kid. And no, I'm not upset. And no, I'm definitely not ashamed of you. She looked at me, her eyes searching my face for hidden disappointment. Really? Really? I said. I'm always on your side, always. And if you mess up, we talk about it, just you and me. No strangers showing up. No lectures from Grandma. No guilt trips. No shame. Just us figuring it out. Deal. She nodded, nuzzled into my shoulder, and I just sat there in the dark, holding her, listening to her breathe. I knew that this time I had gotten there in time. I also knew that from now on, I wasn't stepping away. Not even for a minute. There's a strange moment after a child falls asleep following a meltdown. It's quiet on the outside, chaos on the inside. Charlotte's face was buried in my shoulder, breathing, softly and finally calm. I lay there staring at the ceiling, waiting for it to hand me the answer to the question that had been gnawing at me all evening. How did I ever think these people were safe enough to leave my daughter with? I grew up in that family. A standard childhood, but in the most emotionally barren sense. It's my mom. Perfect makeup, frosty heart. She never yelled. Emotions were beneath her. Her catchphrase was, don't make a scene. Behave with dignity. If I was upset, she didn't ask what happened. And what are you planning to do about it? My older sister Kendra was polished. Straight A's, perfect ponytails, a color-coded personality. She lacked a spine of her own and learned to mirror my mom. She always watched her like she was an instruction manual on how to act, think, and breathe. I was the difficult one. Translation, I had opinions, spoke at the wrong times, thought too much, cad when things hurt, which in our house meant I was weak. My dad existed in the background, soft, warm, invisible. I think he loved us, but he lived in my mother's shadow. Sometimes he'd wink at me when she got especially unbearable, his version of solidarity, but he never stepped in. When I ran to my room crying, he didn't ask why, just brought hot cocoa. He was a life raft, not a shield. I left home at 19, took night classes, worked during the day, and rented a shoebox apartment with a stunning view of a brick wall. I wanted to be a designer, so I became one. Now at 32, I'm a UX designer for a small but steady company. It's a remote gig with occasional business trips. I'm not rich, but I make enough. Charlotte came along when I was 27. Her dad had great shoulders and the emotional range of a kitchen sponge. He seemed solid at first, but then he started flinching when she cried at night. 6 months later, he was always working late. A year in, he was gone. The divorce was quiet. Now he mails child support and the occasional card with a wonky dinosaur sketch. Charlotte barely remembers him. The unspoken deal with this not perfect but steady life, I let my mom back in. It started after my dad died suddenly from a brain aneurysm. At the funeral, my mom was a statue. Oh, tears. Just said, I guess it's all on me now. We hadn't really spoken in years, but after the funeral, she started reaching out, checking in. One day, she even showed up with a supermarket rotisserie chicken. Not homemade, but a peace offering nonetheless. I thought maybe she's changed. Maybe with Dad gone, she's trying to build something real. I let myself believe it because grief changes people. And because she's still my mother, I started dropping by with Charlotte and started leaving her there for an hour or two when I had errands. Kendra lived nearby with her daughter, Nora, who was 4. They were often at my mom's. The girls played together and seemed fine. Kendra worked part-time as a teacher's aide at a private preschool for barely minimum wage. Plus, whatever side gigs she could scrape up when she could find someone to watch. Nora, her ex-husband, moved out of state and hasn't paid a cent in child support. So Kendra leaned on my mom, and my mom leaned on me. At first, it was small stuff: insurance bills, fixing the water heater. Then it turned into a monthly ritual. Can you help with this? Kendra's struggling. She's got a child, you understand? Yeah, me too. And still, I paid. I even started covering part of Kendra's car loan every month. Otherwise, it would have been repossessed by now. The unspoken deal was that I was the one with a steady income, so it was on me because we're family. For a while, I told myself maybe Charlotte would have it better. Maybe she'd grow up with what I never had: a warm family, silly Christmas cards, hugs that meant something, a cousin her age, a grandma who bakes cookies. I wanted her to feel like she belonged, but now watching her sleep, I get it. None of it was real. It never changed. They just played nice for a bit. My mom doesn't love Charlotte, not really. She won't say it out loud, but you can see that constant, low-grade disapproval in her eyes. Charlotte isn't a quiet little accessory. She's loud, bright, messy, fully alive. And my mother can't stand real. She wants polite, quiet, controllable. Like Kendra, like Nora, who sits on Grandma's lap with a bow in her hair, looking like she was manufactured in a box labeled ideal grandchild. Kendra knows the game and plays it well. She knows who Mom loves more and leans into it. Nora is the new favorite. My daughter is the outsider. So when Nora shoves someone, it's a misunderstanding. But if Charlotte doesn't want to share her toy, it's a red flag because children must learn to share by age 3. Per Grandma's handbook. I'm done pretending this is normal. I won't hand Charlotte over to their cold, judgmental little world again. They got used to me being the fixer, the one who helps, who pays, who smooths things over. And if something went wrong, I was the one to blame. Not anymore. I've picked a side, and I picked my daughter. The consequences the first 5 days were eerily quiet. No texts, no calls, no passive-aggressive photos of Nora with captions like, "Just imagine how sweet it would be if the girls grew up together." Charlotte started sleeping through the night, started breathing again. For a hot minute, I even believed I could live without that constant low-grade guilt lodged somewhere under my ribs. Then, day 5 hit. I got an email that morning. You have successfully canceled your recurring payment of $278 to Kendra Wallace's loan account. I closed my laptop. Here we go. Kendra was first. Hey Mel, did you forget? The payment didn't go through today. It's probably a glitch. No, Kendra, not a glitch. Just the end of your free trial of my generosity. I didn't reply. Silence is a valid response. 3 hours later, my mom chimed in. Mallory, I'm concerned. Are you okay? The utility transfer didn't come through. We're having another issue. The water heater is leaking again. I already called someone, but he sent a bill and I don't have the funds yet. Maybe it's a card issue. Utilities. I never paid the bills directly. I just sent her a set amount each month for utilities at her request. But it always came with some story. Broken meter, gas got shut off. This plumber is more expensive than the last one. It was obvious the stories were just decoys. The money was the point. I had stopped asking questions. It was easier to throw $180 at it than play financial detective and end up feeling like a heartless monster. I didn't reply to her either. I just canceled the auto pay on her health insurance, too. Let her call Medicare or hell the next day. They decided it was time to bring out the heavy artillery. Kendra showed up in person with Nora in tow. I was feeding Charlotte star-shaped mac and cheese. Nora stared at her plate like she hadn't seen food in days. We were just nearby, Kendra said, not making eye contact. And I thought maybe we should talk. Charlotte pressed herself into my side. Nothing to talk about, I said, slicing cucumbers. Mel, come on. You know I don't have the kind of income you do. I've got a kid and ... double quotes. She hesitated. ... N. You've got mom and your daughter is her chosen one. You're doing just fine. She swallowed hard. Nora started sniffling. So you're really not going to help anymore? Kendra asked. Nope. And if you're hoping to guilt me using your kid, don't. She left without saying goodbye. A few hours later, my mom called. Is this your final decision? Yeah. So you're just leaving us in a difficult position. No, I'm just no longer sponsoring your lifestyle. You're grown women, you'll manage. This is petty. It's punishing the whole family over one misunderstanding. That wasn't a misunderstanding. That was police involvement in a toddler tantrum. You know exactly what it was? You're exaggerating. Okay, and you're minimizing. It doesn't work anymore. I'm done. Well, she said, don't be surprised when there are consequences. Ooh, what consequences exactly? That you'll boycott Thanksgiving dinner where I'm already the only one who cooks. Terrifying. Later that night, Kendra sent one more message. Sorry I came by. We're just in a really tough spot. I thought you still wanted Nora to have an aunt, for Charlotte to have a cousin, but I guess that doesn't matter to you. It does matter. It matters that my daughter has people who are safe, kind, and who don't smile while dialing the cops because she picked a doll from the wrong bin. I didn't answer. I just hugged Charlotte when she asked if she could draw a rainbow on the wall. Course, I said, as long as it's in your room. She ran off for her markers, and I sat there in the kitchen with a half-eaten bowl of stars. It's a bunch of canceled auto pays and this weird, unfamiliar feeling in my chest. Relief. For 5 years. I had spent my time bending over backward for people who treated my child like an afterthought. Now everything was finally where it should be. They were going to struggle. But I wasn't going to anymore. The smear campaign about a week after the 5th, the day they didn't get their money, the real fun began. I went to pick up Charlotte from preschool, as I always did, 4 o'clock sharp, with gummy bears in my coat pocket. But this time, the usual warm smiles from other parents were replaced with sideways glances and whispers. One of the PTA queens acted like she didn't even see me, which was funny considering she's usually glued to my side for small talk about gluten-free lunch hacks. When I stepped into the coat room, a few moms were chatting animatedly until I walked in. Then silence, like someone hit mute. A couple of them, Kim with her Stanley tumbler and Leslie, the Pinterest braid queen, looked at me like I'd shown up to snatch their kids, not my own. Hey, Mallory, one of them said eventually with a tight, awkward smile. Everything okay? With you guys. It's translation. We were just talking about you, and now we don't know where to look. Great, thanks, I said, helping Charlotte zip up her coat. She pressed against me, quiet as a mouse. It's just ... She glanced at the others. We, got this message ... anonymous. About some incident with the police? Something about Charlotte having, how did it put it? Anger issues? I took a deep breath. My first instinct was to say, why the hell are you gossiping about a 5-year-old? Instead, I went with option B.com. Interesting. And who exactly sent this? There was no name, just an email and screenshots ... A piece of what looked like a police report, supposedly. I repeated. And you believed it? They looked at each other. Their silence said more than any words. Right then, Miss Sanders, the lead teacher, came out from the classroom. She looked like she didn't want to be involved, but was legally required to care. Mallory, can I speak with you for a moment? Stepped aside. Charlotte stayed by her cubby, twisting her mitten between her fingers. There's no problem with Charlotte, she said immediately. She's kind, cooperative, social. If anyone's snatching toys, it's not her. Then what's this about? 2. Parents approached me today. One of them was actually concerned whether their child was safe being in the same group as hers. I tried to smile. It didn't go well. Any idea where they got their info? One of them showed me a screenshot. It's an email supposedly from a family. Members said Charlotte had behavioral problems, that the police were already involved. I closed my eyes. Want to know where it really came from? Only if you feel like sharing, Miss Sanders said gently. I looked her straight in the eye. Charlotte had a spat with her 4-year-old cousin. Her grandma and aunt decided she needed a lesson, so they called the police on a 5-year-old because she didn't share a toy. Oh, and now I guess they're expanding their smear campaign to the general public, probably hoping I'll panic and start wiring them money again. Miss Sanders didn't say a word, just gave a long, slow nod. I walked back to Charlotte. The moms were still huddled nearby, waiting for the next episode. I sighed. In this neighborhood, rumors move faster than preschool RSV. Sometimes it's easier to just give them a headline. In case you're wondering, I said calmly, I've got a complicated relationship with my mother. She chose to handle things creatively. Charlotte's fine. The police are not on speed dial. Thanks for the concern. They all started nodding and smiling, awkwardly murmuring, "Oh, got it, and good to know." I smiled just enough to end the conversation and took Charlotte's hand. She squeezed my hand hard as we walked to the car. I wrapped my arm around her shoulders. It's okay, baby. Grown-ups love to talk, even when they don't know what they're talking about. The final stand that night, my ex-husband texted, "Just got a weird message about the police in Charlotte." What's going on? Of course, the great volcano of child support and occasional birthday cards had woken up. I sighed and replied, my mom called the police because Charlotte pushed her cousin. Sounds crazy. That's because it is. Cops showed up, saw 2 little girls in princess dresses, drank a bottle of water, and left. Everything's fine, he called. Wait, is that seriously what happened? I just don't know if I should step in. Maybe she'd be better off with her father. I almost laughed. Really? You step in? You've spent 5 years toggling between sending a gift and forgetting her birthday. Well, I do pay child support. A payment doesn't make you a parent. You want to step up? Do it. You want to fight for custody? Good luck. But let's be honest. You don't know her, and she doesn't know you. One anonymous message made you this? Reactive. Maybe start by Googling emotional manipulation. I'm just concerned. Then be concerned consistently, silently. At least that would show some stability. He hung up the next day. Kendra was waiting for me by the preschool gates, standing. They're like a therapist with boundary issues. Nora was with her. You serious right now, Mallory? Nice to see you too. Kendra, how's your evening? This isn't mature. It just stopped helping. No warning. Oh, and you gave me a heads up when you called the cops on my 5-year-old. Trolled? Her eyes. That was Mom. Her call. And what were you doing? Baking muffins. You stood there and nodded along or egged her on. Either way, not innocent. She sighed. Oh, Mom and I aren't even speaking anymore because of you. You blew up the family, okay? I ruined the little club you built without me for 10 years. The one I was only invited to when you needed cash and a free babysitter. You're just being vindictive. I'm protecting my daughter. Something you forgot to do. Kendra looked down. I exhaled. You're a mom too, Kendra. Imagine if someone used your kid to make a point. If Nora was sitting alone, shaking, and you had no idea, how would you feel? She didn't say anything, just took Nora's hand and walked. Away. Charlotte saw the whole thing. She looked up at me and asked quietly, "Are they not coming anymore?" I knelt down beside her. No, sweetie, they're not. And if they ever try, I'll protect you. I promise. A few days later, I showed up at preschool a little early and asked to speak with the director. In her office, I laid it all out. No sugarcoating. The police call. The grandmother who thinks parenting is a medieval inquisition. The smear campaign in the parent chat. How my 5-year-old had to cling to me like I was her life raft. I'm really sorry you've been through all that, she said when I finished. I hear you. No one except pre-approved contacts will be allowed near your daughter. Would you like that in writing? Yes, please. And no baby talk. No fake sweet voices. No give auntie a kiss. Nothing. 0 access. She nodded. We'll follow. Protocol. I'll also brief the teachers in case either of them shows up at the door. Thank you. And if any of the other parents ask, feel free to say it's a safety issue. No details. I walked out of there feeling like I'd just cleaned the kitchen after. A pot of milk exploded on the stove. Not perfect, but not sticky anymore. The next day, I filed for a temporary restraining order straight through the court website. I selected 2 for the quantity, listed the reason, and attached screenshots. Estimated delivery, 5 business days. They got the papers on Thursday. I know because that day, for the first time in forever. There were no texts, no calls, no doorstep performances with wide-eyed children. Just peace.real. Actual peace. That evening, Charlotte and I had ice cream. She chose vanilla. I picked salted caramel because after filing court paperwork, your caramel has to be salted. She was drawing a rainbow on her wall. Mama, can I draw? A dragon too, she asked. Of course, but he has to be nice. He's going to protect the rainbow, she said, and ran off to grab her green marker. I watched her go, curled up in my chair with a throw blanket and tea, and for the first time in a long time, I wasn't scared. No calls, no surprises, no guilt bombs, no one knocking, demanding, guilting, or gaslighting. They can be mad. They can write long, passive-aggressive monologues. They can tell extended family what an ungrateful daughter I am. I don't have to be the good one anymore. I just have to be her mother, and I'm on her. I am. I don't have to be the good one anymore. I just have to be her mother, and I'm on her side always. A month later, Kendra missed another car payment and texted my mom. If they repossess it, I literally can't work. Mom forwarded it to me. I didn't respond. Months passed. The bank took the car. Kendra now walks to her evening gigs and begs the neighbor to babysit Nora as a favor. My mom sends me texts about her routine checkups, her sky-high utility bills, and how the system is unfair and won't cover her insurance. I don't answer. I'm no longer the family emergency fund, no longer the one who understands. Let them figure it out or not. Either way, it's no longer my job. Meanwhile, Charlotte learned the alphabet, mastered French braids, and started believing again that home is a safe place. We put glow-in-the-dark stars on our ceiling, made pancakes for dinner, and cracked up. Over cartoons, I finally got it. Family isn't who you owe. It's who holds your hand, not your throat.